Alexandria, the world's first knowledge network. Alexandria wasn't an incident of history. It was planned, like a statement carved into the coastline of Egypt. When Alexander the Great founded a city, it was never meant to connect worlds. Examples of these worlds such as Greece, Egypt, Persia, and India. But after his death, his successors, the Ptolemies, wanted something even greater than military power. They wanted intellectual dominance. Their ambition was simple and outrageous. Bring us every book, not just Greek literature, not just Egyptian records, but everything ever written. And to do that, they didn't build one building. They built a city-wide machine for knowledge. In the most exclusive district of Alexandria, near the royal palaces and gardens, stood a place called the Museum, the House of the Muses. This was the beating heart of the knowledge system. Picture marble columns, shaded walkways, courtyards filled with debate. Inside lived scholars from across the known world, astronomers, doctors, mathematicians, and poets. They weren't visitors. They were state employees. They received salaries, free food, housing, and tax exemptions. Their only duty? To think, to write, to argue about the nature of all the universe. Attached to this complex was the main library collection, the most precious texts in existence. This was not a public library. This was a research fortress of the mind. Here, scholars edited the Homeros, measured the earth, and mapped the stars. The future of science quietly took shape in these halls. Inside the library, knowledge did not look like modern books. It lived in scrolls, rolled sheets of papyrus tagged with small labels. Imagine long rooms lined with wooden niches, bundles of scrolls organized by subject. Poetry in one section, medicine in another, mathematics, astronomy, law, and drama. Hundreds of thousands of works, or at least more than the ancient world had ever gathered in one place. But these scrolls were not just stored. They were studied, corrected, and compared. Alexandrian scholars invented textual criticism, comparing versions of texts to find the most accurate one. In other words, they weren't just collecting knowledge, they were refining it. But knowledge in Alexandria didn't live in just one neighborhood. Travel southwest through the city streets, past markets and temples, and you would reach a towering sanctuary, the Serapeum, a temple to the god Serapis, but also home to what we now call the Daughter Library. This was the second great collection. If the museum was the brain, the Serapeum was the public face of knowledge. Here, educated citizens and visiting scholars could consult texts. It was still elite by modern standards, but far more open than the royal complex. So Alexandria made a distinction that still exists today. One space for cutting-edge research, another for broader learning. Knowledge was distributed, not locked away. Now imagine arriving in Alexandria as a merchant. You ship docks in the busiest port of the Mediterranean. Officials board the vessel not to inspect weapons, but books. Scrolls are taken to be copied. Sometimes the originals never return. Athens once lent official copies of famous Greek plays. Alexandria kept them and paid a fine instead. This was knowledge acquisition on an imperial scale. Once a text entered the system, scribes copied it by hand. Scholars reviewed it. Librarians categorized it. Books didn't just enter a building. They entered a knowledge processing network. A collection this large would be useless without organization. Enter Callimachus. He created a catalogue called the Pinnaces, listing authors, subjects, and details of each work. Think of it as the world's first massive library database. Without it, scrolls would be lost in chaos. With it, scholars could navigate a sea of information. Alexandria wasn't just storing knowledge, it was inventing information science. But this incredible system had a weakness. It depended on rulers who believed knowledge was worth funding. When political priorities shifted, support faded. Fewer scribes copied texts, buildings decayed, scholars left. Instead of one catastrophic fire, the library likely died slowly, like a city whose lights go out one by one. The Serapeum was eventually destroyed in the late 4th century. By then, the great network of Alexandria was already a shadow of its former self. The Library of Alexandria was never just a building that burned. It was a distributed knowledge civilization. Multiple locations, specialized roles, catalogues, and research communities. It separated research from public access, collection from analysis, and storage from discovery. Every modern university, research institute, and digital database follows a model Alexandria pioneered. The scrolls are gone. The marble halls are dust. But the system they created, the dream of gathering all knowledge and organizing it for humanity, that part of Alexandria never burned. It is the reason you can learn anything from anywhere today.